In the golden age of Asgard, there lived a god so pure, so wise, and so radiant that all of creation adored him. His name was Baldr, son of Odin and Frigg, the god of light, beauty, and innocence. His smile could melt the frost of Jotunheim, and his laughter was the sound of summer. Where Baldr walked, flowers bloomed, and the air itself seemed to sing. He was the sunbeam that pierced the darkest clouds, the very heart of the gods' joy. But one day, a shadow fell over this perfect world. Baldr began to have terrible nightmares, visions of his own death, of a world plunged into darkness. He would wake up screaming, his face pale with a terror that chilled the other gods to the bone. They saw the light in him dimming, replaced by a haunting fear. The joy of Asgard began to curdle into anxiety. His mother, Frigg, the queen of the gods, could not bear to see her son suffer. Driven by a mother's fierce love, she embarked on an unprecedented journey. She traveled through all the 9 realms, from the fiery depths of Muspelheim to the icy plains of Nibelheim. She spoke to every living thing and every inanimate object. She pleaded with fire and water, with iron and stone, with every beast of the field and every tree in the forest. From each, she extracted a sacred oath that they would never harm her beloved Baldr. Everything in existence, from the mightiest mountain to the smallest pebble, swore the vow. Frigg returned to Asgard, her heart finally at peace. Baldr was safe, he was invincible. To celebrate, the gods devised a new game in their grand hall, Gladsheim. They would gather around Baldr and hurl things at him. Axes, swords, massive boulders, anything they could find. And to their delight, every object would simply veer away or bounce harmlessly off him. The sharpest blade would turn aside, the heaviest hammer would float past like a feather. Baldr stood in the center of it all, laughing, his radiance restored, brighter than ever. This game became a daily ritual, a joyous affirmation of his invulnerability and a celebration of the love that protected him. But not everyone celebrated. Watching from the shadows was Loki, the trickster, his heart a knot of envy. He couldn't stand the sight of Baldr's perfection, the universal love he commanded. Loki's mind, always twisting and scheming, began to hatch a plan. He disguised himself as a frail old woman and hobbled to Frigg's hall. He praised her cleverness, asking if it was true that all things had sworn an oath. Frigg, beaming with pride, confirmed it. Everything, she said. Then, leaning in, she confided a tiny secret. Well, almost everything. I didn't bother asking the mistletoe. It grows west of Valhalla, and it seemed so young, so small and harmless. What threat could a tiny twig possibly pose? And with those words, Frigg unknowingly sealed her son's fate. A cruel smile spread across Loki's disguised face. He thanked the queen and left immediately. He found the unassuming mistletoe, pulled a branch, and with his dark magic, sharpened it into a deadly dart. He returned to Gladsheim, where the gods were in the middle of their game. Amidst the cheers and laughter stood Höðr, Baldr's twin brother. Höðr was blind and could not participate in the joyous spectacle. He stood apart, his face sad. Loki sidled up to him. "Why don't you join in?" he whispered. "Show your brother some honor," Höðr replied. "I cannot see to aim, and I have no weapon." Loki pressed the mistletoe dart into his hand. "Use this," he said softly. "It is but a slender twig. I will guide your arm, so you don't miss." Trusting the voice, Höðr took the dart. Loki placed his hand over Höðr's, aimed it directly at Baldr's heart, and helped him throw. The small dart flew true. It did not swerve, it did not bounce. It pierced Baldr's chest, and he fell to the ground without a sound. A deafening silence descended upon Asgard. The laughter died, the music stopped. The gods stood frozen, staring in disbelief. Then, a wail of grief rose, a sound of such pure agony that it shook the foundations of the world. The light of Asgard had been extinguished. All of creation wept with the gods. The very stones shed tears, the trees dropped their leaves in sorrow, and even the fearsome giants of Jotunheim mourned the loss of beauty. In a last, desperate act, Odin's son Hermod mounted the 8-legged steed, Sleipnir, and rode for 9 nights through darkness to the gates of Hel, the realm of the dead. He begged its queen, also named Hel, to release his brother. Hel, with a face half beautiful and half decayed, considered his plea. She offered a cruel bargain. If all things in the world, alive and dead, weep for Baldr, then he may return. But if even one refuses, he will remain with me forever. Hermod raced back with the news, and messengers were dispatched across the 9 realms. And weep they did. Men, elves, dwarves, beasts, earth, and sky all shed tears for the fallen god. The world was flooded with a river of grief. Victory seemed within their grasp. But as the messengers made their final check, they found a lone giantess sitting in a dark cave. Her name was Thek. They begged her to weep, but she just sneered. "Let hell keep what she has," she cackled. "Thek will weep only dry tears for Baldr's death," and with that, she refused. The messengers knew then that all was lost. That giantess was, of course, Loki in another disguise. Baldr was doomed to remain in the land of the dead forever. The gods' grief turned to furious rage. They hunted Loki down and subjected him to a horrific punishment, binding him in a cave to be tormented until the end of time. But it was too late. The damage was done. With the death of Baldr, the death of innocence, light, and beauty, the prophecies of the end began to stir. The first chill of the Fimbulwinter, the great winter that would precede the final battle, was felt in Asgard. The gods knew, with cold certainty, that the death of their brightest star was not just a tragedy. It was the beginning of the end. It was the first note in the funeral dirge of the world, the first step on the dark path to Ragnarok. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this journey into the heart of Norse mythology, please like, share, and subscribe for more tales from the ancient world.